first year MFA here at CU. I'm going to read a couple of poems that I started during my undergrad a couple years ago and recently got published. In taking my gun, I sling it forth and walk into the pleistocene. Barrel driver, sleepwalker, evocative somnambulist, I found your skeletal remains soaked in black acid, and feeling your saber teeth dripping grease of tar, raging oil drum fires, pooling night, drooling rushing L train, glittering into the mouth of a pearlless oyster, tunnel sledge. What's left of the shell, if not exactly a call for wilderness, instead a gagging cat throat, red fire hydrant, resting, red silhouette out of the leaf rot. My mouth mammoth, woolly and mud-colored, crashing into the lake bed, bog-tired, into a coffin laced with webs of cranberry and deer skin, into a coffin laced with cranberries, into a coffin laced with garlands of cranberry and deer skin. My tusk tongue piercing the sky blue mirror, and reflecting out of the water, I write this eulogy for a time. Skinny winter bog. To go no further than the rabbit, a beating heart under the still. We are connected through sedge and spindle, the bog rosemary a sheet of icing over snow. And the next couple poems I'll read are new and kind of a work in progress. Lake Mary. Maybe yucca or agave. Are these plains or prairie or grassland? Bison in the arsenal. The last glaciation burnt to fracture. Fishers and lamb ears in the mud. Bottle cap. To be the husk, then part of the husk, cut from the husk, pull through the husk, the husk, the husk, the hush. To be the husk, then part of the hush, pull through the hush, the thrush. To be the husk, pull through the thrush, or wild brush. Is this lush? This is lush. Pull through the husk, the dusk. Uplanding. I did not go to war, except went and slided forward, all botanical or slacked. Small terrarium of bryophyte, where breath pools juicy indigoed. In what temperament? And what if I burn to the very last sagebrush? Be cautious of a snowscape that exhales. And this will be my last one. Amphibia. A snake disembodied our caution. By definition, it was repeating itself in skyline. I tried to make the mountain move, but it just stood there. Move, mountain, mountain, move. We live in this biota, everything a shade of nude. To insulate a smart mouth, slink hot across my vertebrae, mouthing ether into a bell jar. This is valid dream speak. Amphibian, Adirondack, Americana hound dog. I'm going to tell you a sonnet and it's going to go by fast, so you're going to have to listen. From Golden Buddha. Sandra Simmons' sonnets are an expansive urban sprawl, glinting under aquatic quaking waters. They bobble up from beneath as glacier melt, fruity horse carcasses grinding hoofs into a semi-romantic skull cavity. This fission sonnet is a dumb blonde standing on a melting Mont Blanc. Google it. The sonnets are 14-line Skype sessions with William Shakespeare himself, frozen on a frame in which he scoops melon balls from the cantaloupe husk mid-mouth insertion. Seeds everywhere, seeds. Her poetry exudes playfulness that is both exact and teenaged, a sublime whatever, mothering voyager. Sandra Simmons is the author of 4 collections of poetry: Warsaw Bikini from Bluth Books, Mother Was a Tragic Girl, Cleveland State University Poetry Center, The Sonnets from Bluth Books, and The Glass Box, forthcoming from Saturnalia later this year. Please help me welcome Sandra Simmons.
Thank you, Sarah, for your poems and introduction. Thank you, Noah and Julie, for having me, and I'm excited to release them. Thanks for coming. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I grade online humanities tests at McDonald's where there are no black people and there's a multiple choice question, or white people about Don Quixote, or Asian or Indian people. I don't want to be around people. I want to be here where there is free wireless. I do not want to sit at the Christian coffee shop nor the public library. No, I want religion to blow itself up. My sister converted to Catholicism. I do not want to sit at Starbucks. I like McDonald's coffee because it is cheap and watery. I like how it tastes. I like this table where the old man is telling his old friend about the baby black swan that he would feed corn to in Cairo, Georgia, when he was a kid. No, Mark Twain did not write Don Quixote. I'm going to be here a while in this fucked up shit. You can get an old Crown Vic police car in Cairo for $500. So I read a poem by James Franco in the literary magazine I brought with me. My mechanic wants to fuck me, and the poem isn't as bad as people say he is bad. One of his friends dies in the poem. He says the word cunt. I don't know what to make of it. I read it as Canute, the medieval prince of Denmark who ascended to become the king of England. I bet some managers here could relate to Canute. Send me a pic of your cunt. The mechanic says, I miss you. I say, what do you miss about me? He says, your big tits. Elliott Smith is mentioned in the Franco poem and might or might not be a cowboy. Maybe Franco really is bad after all. The Crown Vic is a vehicle, the way the police always say vehicle, not car, but the mechanic always says car, not vehicle, because I teach the police, I know how they talk. The mechanic says, Sandra, stop speeding, and do you want to see a picture of, no, Cervantes did not write because I could not stop for death. And I will be sitting here all day in this fucked up shit, god damn it, click, click, click. I keep looking at things like pictures of your husband, which makes me feel sick and watery. Now a young boy, maybe 8 or 10, in a booth across from me is telling his mama his daddy's new girlfriend is ugly. She's ugly, mama, and trying to comfort her. Do you want to meet me at Home Depot? I don't think that's a good, if I find you, I'll kill him and I'll kill you, and no one will know where the body, but your husband isn't ugly. He is beautiful, leaning over to look at himself in pond water. or leaning over masculinity itself, leaning over the family he has made for himself, and the pond is male because he owns the pond, and the guns are male because he owns the guns, and what's happening is male because he owns the factors that go into the car is male, because he owns the police, and Home Depot is male because he owns and owns and owns, and all he can do is own everything that will rot, like privacy or speech or porn or black swans or my big tits, which he misses, fucking swans. A man decides to sit next to me, and he is frantically hitting his Egg McMuffin on the table, and then walks outside and smokes a cigarette and returns to his seat and starts hitting his wrapped Egg McMuffin again. And then he sees my computer and asks to check his Facebook. So I let him, and then he wants to be friends on Facebook and leaves his phone number on my page, and I like it. And then the little boy is like, and then the little boy in the background is like, she's ugly, Mama. She's so ugly. And the mom's like, is she? Is she ugly? And I think the mom is ugly, even though I don't want her to be. And the other kids at the booth are drinking milk, and they are chubby and eating fries and saying, yeah, she's ugly. Yeah, Mama, she's ugly. You wouldn't want to meet her because she's so ugly. I didn't have the internet for a while at home, so I would like grade papers at McDonald's, and that sort of came out of that experience. Sort of. That's part of a series of poems about the humanities, the idea of the humanities. What is the humanities? I guess, not that I ever found out really, but here's another one in that series. It's called I Am Inside the Humanities. I am inside the humanities, and if I step too far out of it, I'm dead. The figure at the top of the left corner is Securitas. No rent, no work, no wages, no more. For those thinking of disturbing the peace, let the hanged man be your warning. In order to write this poem, I paid daycare $523 for the week. Make sure you pre-mix the bottles, bring diapers, make it worth something this time. Mayan countdown clock to Mayan countdown clock, two bodies, uncivilized, in a bed, wanting the water of the world to give them back a pyramid. Also the bronze head of Adam, also the world of children, their toys, the plastic imitation food, eggs, miniature cereal boxes, deformed mirror to the real. I could not keep working to make money for the people I despised. Nothing is right, but I couldn't afford not to either. Late at night, Craig said, I hate my job. The hydrogeologists have to give permits to Gulf Oil for more water, or someone will lose their livelihood. It was winter in Florida. The path to all principles of all inquiries led back to this one statement, like a receipt from Publix. I was teaching the humanities again. In the garden of the fallen aristocrats, where no one sits on the lawn, it is as if heaven is on one side, hell on the other, and somehow I have slipped very far into the abyss between the two, an abyss that contains suns, the way black holes do not give back the history of light, the way a galaxy turns like a clock into the desperate desire for water, and these flowers bloom like idiots, live as thieves. Craig's cryptic text from West Florida. No coffee, nuclear power plant, and a picture of some industrial map of rust. Oh, Apollinaire, oh to thee, in this garden, which is a mockery of all gardens, in this bed, bath, and beyond of the intimate, remember me. I know what is real, and I will remember how to steal back what is mine. Are you guys okay with a long poem? Okay. I feel like I'm taller than this mic wants me. I'm really bad at the things you're supposed to say between poems, so I'm just gonna. Sorry, because what I end up doing is I just tell you everything about the poem, and then it's like there's no point in reading the poem. And that's a poet problem. So I decided to try to control that. This poem is called "Poetry is Stupid and I Want to Die." I guess it's a little teenagery of a title. It says Zero saying, poor part teenager. I feel like I've stayed a teenager in some ways. I don't know. Okay. Poetry, stupid, and I want to die. The one trick I've always fallen back on is to make a man think he's the one rejecting me. But it was so quiet in your room, even if you had horrible books written by men at your bedside, and in your possession that deep desire to hurt, and thus in my head, scrambling between kissing you and trying to maneuver how I would leave unharmed, the way a woman has to manipulate both mind and body. I dreamed I was in a car and a man hit me over the head. Please don't tell me the story of the graduate student who put a mouse in her freezer just to see what would happen. It was quiet though, if even for a moment. I drive around Tallahassee to find one quiet place. The way I love you is not as a sheriff searches for a walnut. It's more violent, and I can't stay in the moment of this poem long enough for the feeling to unfold. I owe the therapist $80, the woman wearing a fur coat with her 6 kids on a leash who showed up to the South Georgia poetry reading in her stretchy jeans. I was proud to have been the host to that, the way one might write a hallelujah ode to a black hole with roses and tulips shooting out of it. Oh, the grotesquerie. John Keats, you don't have to say mother anymore. This is my quietness. I am the bride and also the urn, and you are my foster child as I make you sit here and listen to my prayers are sweeter than any rhyme sprouting out of a dog's skull, beautiful bud on the cold stone. When Walter Benjamin is all high on hashish, that's when he finally understands Poe, or the lazy grass that grows along this lake that fakes every orgasm and takes delight through deception. Take these irretrievable zones of stupidity, which are the little wings that grow at the end of my smile, which is, I don't know, Zumba, power yoga, smoothies, breakdancing. The Anthropocene is a disease that affects the heart-lung machine, is tripping on the setting day, dazed like the end of disco. I know how to waste the mellow hour, glides like a swan into the future, so long future, turns into swans gliding across the ice in Florida, some cursive tongues or calligraphy made of pure value. The mood descending like soft rains in the tropics. Every day is the dream of the desiccated Virgin Mary's head who hovers above my body to mock the lush plants, the megaflora to capture the line vanishing, the threshold vanishing, the apartment vanishing, the vanishing rent to connect one vanishing point with another, how deeply one delves into each side of the moment, how deeply the sentence turns into the cafe, the spirit world, a loud, drunken discussion about politics or the aversion to certain foods. Farewell material, I have plunged into it, and the spirit world splashes around my form. So how can I resist the demons who insist I seem to be so much their semblance? The red walls of ice lasted about an hour. Falling from the sky, my son said, "That is weird. I have never seen that before." It is the end of the pterosaurs, machines, marching bands, particle accelerators, Diet Coke, the end of chai tea, Darjeeling, and the lavender calming aromatherapy mist for room and body. Day is already what's in the wake of the irretrievable, and for what, Horatio? Cones, pyramids, squares, bricks of pills, or the sunset, breaking harsher and in more elegiac tones in crude relief, like monotone set against monotone, or the obscene silk dresses that flowing in the sugar-scented air that I wore in Paris with my cousins eating lemon ice cream along the banks of the Seine. You were already crashing straight into my history of days, swelling like a bad book thrown into dirty water, and you knew it even though it was smudged, like the dream of carbon breaking into fossils, ideology, the smell of fat roots in the forest. The relief is so transient. Get me out of here, but I felt faint or weak or without the will or hope, because beauty does this to her sufferers and makes a kind of lucid Maserati of the heavens, the mock heroic event horizon. Maybe I'm the ruthless one, the bad character in one of those novels at your bedside, the one who lies, cheats, and steals, but there's no way to know for sure, honey, when you've been given so little of the plot, and all the other characters are probably very seedy, but stay silent, at least for now. As if we were all in the middle of a large body of signals, a silence of aqua that has these high-pitched sounds like metallic birds perforating in rings of cloud. We could be sitting in a coffee shop drinking tea and holding back our life stories, each history, a long stay in the spiral staircases of libraries and burnt gardens. I can't imagine why anyone would feel the desire to hurt a woman who thinks about suicide every day. But hey, the wines are drawn. This lake is much more than an acquaintance. Maybe the way pain in public is so demonstrative and humiliating, and also so affectionate and giving, turning ourselves into mere technology. So there's only ever some superficial layer of the apathetical light. I like the feeling of not crying, but still wanting to, like prolonging the orgasm, some tantric impulse to the comets. Or maybe better to burn some incense because it is Saturday and the house is cool and calm and quiet like a plant. I like the build-up, the way it's like a short story maybe, or short stories are like the breasts when they are hard and full of milk and the baby is never gentle with what he wants, and the nipple is not gentle with her giving. I don't understand how anyone could abandon you, much less your mother, and for what? To have made you this creature, forever stalking the evil light of a pool of blood, fixating on the ring of flowers at the bottom, as if that ring could ever bring back your mother, or a narrative that made sense. One may scroll endlessly through a picture gallery of flowers, anemone, autumn joy, and imagine that there are 25 other letters of these ready to be planted, the apple blossoms, azalea, and none of this you recognize the Virgin Mary's desiccated, sepia-toned eyes floating so close to you, trying to find water so plants might bloom into the lush form of volition, the complete face of compassion we must feel for our enemies, which is why I don't understand why anyone would abandon anyone in our cold pastoral of rain, dirt, art. And the stage set, which gets shot up like a gas station, the way we watched Martha and Andy's mom on TV, and I looked down and I realized it was his liver, and Andy and I laughed at the way his mother said this, but how awful it is really. A trained nurse just getting some gas and coffee, and the whole thing descends into a wet liver on the horrible tiles of a Conoco station in New Orleans. So now I wonder about Jason, the geologist, who kept threatening to kill himself, and no one cared until he went to Billings for work and got blackout drunk and shot a woman for no reason. He said, "Look at what you made me do," which is what they all say. From Florida, he had few ties to the Billings area. Some things have no reason, and that's why they are so hard to understand. How did you get away? I can't say for sure. It's kind of a blur. I endured it. I gave him what he wanted. I was very afraid. I knew he could kill. I promised that he would get something later, because every story from the South has to end with some theft and betrayal. And it's a romance, and if it's a romance, like I'm sure this one is, the moon will take the shape of the face of that disaster, looking back on itself in disbelief. I don't know what time, but I guess should I read more? Or? Yeah, okay. That's like a trick question, right? If you ask, can I read more, no one's ever going to say no. But I should keep track of the time, right? Okay. So, no, you can't. I'll read a couple of sonnets just to change the tone and the pace, and then I will stop. I grew up in Los Angeles, so a lot of these poems are about sort of that life that I had back then in college. This poem is called American Girl. In college, I had this job as a file clerk for Dr. Glassman, a dentist whose patients included Brad Pitt and Dodi Fayed. And you probably didn't know that I'm the girl who wrote deceased with a black Sharpie across the front of Dodi's chart. Sometimes when I go running, my chest hurts like a black tunnel in Paris. And I've never really thought about who might write deceased across my chart, because back then I would go surfing in Malibu with my boyfriend and then sleep on the beach. And in the morning, hungover, would take the RTD bus back to Beverly Hills to file charts when Tom Petty walks in. And he is so much cooler than Brad Pitt will ever be. Because yesterday in Tallahassee, I ran through these trees that had this marijuana-like smell that reminded me of the way Tom Petty looked when I handed him his prescription for antibiotics after he got a filling. I guess I'll read that Golden Buddha poem that was in there. Okay, Golden Buddha. I'm going to tell you a sonnet and it's going to go by fast, so you're going to have to listen. It will have a moral, it'll be tight like a haiku. It will take place when I'm in 12th grade and I'm going to be the main character. It is 1994. In this sonnet, I will slip Chinese menus on people's doorknobs with red and blue rubber bands in Manhattan Beach, California. At the same time, I imagine my classmates are slipping on condoms to prevent themselves from making more of themselves. This is what I do every day after school to help out my family. This sonnet sincerely hopes you understand that even though it's about class and poverty and giving my mom an extra $75 a week and all of that important stuff, it's also about how this work, walking from pink house to yellow house to gray house, gave me beautifully sculpted calf muscles as well as the ability to write this sonnet. This is called Master of Fine Arts. When I was a student getting my MFA, the psychologist I was seeing gave me a piece of paper with a gigantic list of writers who committed suicide. I'm not sure if he was trying to say that I'm in good company or that I'm all alone. When I left the appointment, I climbed the hill adjacent to the university, the one with the M carved into it. I've never understood this need for humans to carve letters into hillsides. It's like saying, Mother, I'm here and I'm alive, And then I thought about how my first year of college, I came home to find my mother's body after she had swallowed a bottle of pills. Are we two more? This one is called American Songs. This was going to be a gorgeous crown of sonnets about atoms and bombs. To tell you the truth, though, I don't know jack about crowns or Adam and Eve. But isn't that what's awesome about being an American poet? You can just take your ignorance and run with it. Or rename it bravado. You can say history or hoe, and then Lady Mary Roth will crawl back into her English hole. Everything I say here I own. I am my own master of this here zone. I write what I sing like karaoke. I sing what I write like kryptonite. Okay, this will be my last poem. This poem is called Red Wand. Okay. Sometimes I try to write to make poetry, but mostly I try to earn a living. There's something still living in every urn, I'm sure of it. The ash moves around inside the vase like the magnetic filings that make the mustache of Wooly Willy. Maybe a new face counts as reincarnation. The wand says, I'll be your ostrich if you'll be my swan. In this life, what did I do wrong? I think my heart is a magnet too. It attracts anything that attracts joy, like the summer grasses the swans track through. Oh my God, how in love I am with joy and yours, how I know that adding to it would only take it further off course, off its precarious center. So for once I won't touch it. I will stand one length away, let it glide stupidly on its weightless line without me. Thank you, guys.
I carry Lisa Fishman in the heart of my bonnet. She is a tree I have seen waving across the entire flaxen grasslands, cavernous furrow. The language she uses is most accurately described as a jubilant echo, darting goldfinch. The thinking was like origami. Everyone folds out of birds into specific kinds of birds. I call you hickory, category, dot, from heft in flower cart. Poems uproot themselves as onion skin and herb. Circadian catalogs selected for a bouquet in a pick-your-own-flower stand. Waffle iron, follow up, document, tomboy, solitary, blossom, from Herald Square. Lisa has a total of 6 books under her boot. The Deep Heart's core is a suitcase from New Issues. The Happiness Experiment, Dear Read, and Flower Cart from Asata Press. Current from Parlor Press. And her most recent 24 pages and other poems from Wave Books. Lisa lives in Orfordville and Madison, Wisconsin, and commutes to Columbia College, Chicago, where she teaches poetry and literature and previously advised my undergrad thesis. In gratitude and awe, please help me welcome Lisa Fishman.
I recognize those cranberries in that bog, that landscape. Hi. Okay, this will have to come down again. Well, you already got it. Don't worry. How's that? Thanks so much, Sarah, Julie, Sandra, Noah, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this snowy evening. We had just gotten spring in Wisconsin and came back to the winter here. So that's good. I'm going to read from the new book, from 24 pages and other poems. And I've been reading just very steadily through the book and picking up wherever I had left off on these readings. But because of certain circumstances, I'm going to change that. I had planned to do so. So, for example, I met Sarah in intermediate poetry workshop. And so I have this poem that is actually written in an intermediate poetry workshop. Right after I came back from sabbatical, I ended up having a class, this intermediate poetry workshop at the undergraduate level with 2 students in it. How the bean counters let this stand, I'll never know, and I wasn't asking questions or calling attention to it. But so there were my 2 students and myself. We met once a week for 4 hours, and they're in the poem because we were in the space, the same space. And I want to start with that one. September 20 to 21, 2013. It would be better if we were outside, Lisa, Tiana, and Sam, on Friday afternoon, on the 2nd day of fall, at 4:30 and all. Whoever you are, what do you know? Time flaws, and to me flew not one white goose, but upside down I saw its good, the undersides of maple leaves, the ragged edges dandelion leaves, surprised they're there this far past summer. Sam and Tiana have left the room, I too. It seems there's a mouse in my sock. 24 times, or 24 centers in the Taoist body. What a coincidence. I read that yesterday. Brooke told me he's fine now. No reason for him to tell me, but I'll tell Charles anyway, in a dream last night. Think of the colors there now in the canyon, and above it in the ridges. Elegy is unintended. So that did veer a bit back to Salt Lake, where I had lived. And I also wanted to read a poem that comes out of a personal circumstance relevant to where we are and who is among us. And where did it go? This came out of a conversation with Julie. And, excuse me, it starts with a line from Chaucer, from the Reeve's Tale. I think what's interesting about the line is simply how the words are spelled. It is English, but the words are spelled very differently. So I'll try to convey that spelling in the saying of the first line, which is the title as well, I suppose. The stream of life now droppeth on the chime. Slight burn as of edges, songed. Out in the boat, what looming over was a trouble to my day. Boy, row the cloak ashore. If lay a lion limb against me, if we stop speaking now for a while. There was fire in the small ghost paper boat, lit with a match, let go in the mouth of a river. There were women in the river. Kathy, Lisa, Tara Lee. The oddest makeshift bathing suits. They seem more like a kingdom. I don't name myself in every poem, so that is a little strange if that happened. These two. And now I'm going to go to this long poem called Amtrak, Orfordville, Riverhead, July to August 2013, and read most of it, but we'll skip some pages. And where the sun was not on the water, it had been a while, and it changed. Sky am clear, say, come here. Crown, paper, and bag company. Paper merchants. I became this, and I became that. Said a word not secretly. Uh-oh, my ear. And to the 10th cluster of cranes, as if a village, sandhill, stepping along, the standing water in the soy fields, liking the pools. I'm gonna have to pause, sorry. Do we have different allergens? Okay, sorry. All right. These poems from this Amtrak sequence are sort of, there's just whatever is happening outside the window of the train is basically what's coming into the space of these little pages. That was all I had to write on that day. And to the 10th cluster of cranes, as if a village, sandhill, stepping along the standing water in the soy fields, liking the pools. A story came into the loon moth found in a book. Ha! Another thing happened next. July full of thistle. This is a little strange notebook to see through. The sumac, some coal cars. I thought Hammond came before Gary. Mercury follows Apollo. Not really. Skyway toll bridge appears for an instant. What are the names of two things? Rampion, Trillium. Max and Kate, what's the next question? The girl and her telescope were left in the field. Star or planet or space debris in the lower right corner of the lens. Flames, they called the squiggly lines. Nothing I saw. The white thing gleaming on the ground just sat there. Stark white, oval-shaped, lamp-sized, brightly shining, approached by a person hands first, crouched, no flashlight, a mushroom, probably laughing. Juniper trees in the kitchen. That is a while to go, the mouth hopes. Nothing will fit, or not everything. Primarily, when you are tending a person dying, you feel them enter the skin of your arms. It's electrical energy in our words, page words, same as the night. Helena slept in the orchard, and James will join them tonight. Cousin and telescope, the cat about. Night before market, no apples yet, but melons again. White fleshed precede orange, Charente yet to come. The log-shaped melons Korean, jewel of the sun, to be traded for bread. The end. Jonah found a frog in the currents. Thirsty, he said, So we flicked water on it, and it sat still, throat pulsing, bright greener than the stem, feet spread, attached to the stem. 3 people, 1 frog, thousands of currents. Basho, anyone, why write it down? Riverhead, Mary's the kingfisher's son. Riverhead, meadowhead, succubus, chime. Riverhead, riven and held. 3 tries to recall the lines dreamt and altered, swept outside into the mullion, which Anne said Indians made into shoes. James said the owl is a baker's daughter, and Chuck called the yellow moth blue the day we sorted currants into cocktails, the 213 and the 123. No, it isn't a good time to get the Dodge van from the shop right now. Leave me alone to stew. A turtle swam under my boat in the river, a large one with petals accompanying. I'm on a train again, thinking that Jeff Ford's potatoes turned yellow due to lack of rain, and that I forgot to tell him after he fell off his bike. The baker broke his shoulder, but we continue to trade. 2 melons for a spelt loaf, and so on. One asshole is talking loud, and the train's too cold. It's the August sounds we meet in. We stretches out, but this moment means one person and self. As if it were that, a few miles could wrap around. Greenish yellow, rather, potato plants' leaves in a dry spell, wilted over dry, sunned dirt. Right now, the grapes are beginning to look good, but we spit them out. Fold over the spine, for it shows how a vertebra sits like a fossil amid plant life and ocean synovial fluid. Fern-like portions of nerves and capillaries made me sure once were actually plants. Could be a stone's throw from the whole truth. And the final poems. This has one sentence quoted from Iris Murdoch's novel, The Sea, the Sea. The deep, which I'll indicate, I guess. The deep sleep yields rest for the misshapen eye. Now think. The page was folded into a proper dart. A certain number of out-of-body experiences are likely not to be perceived. Have you noticed this in your travels? One sun jewel today was very good, eaten in the Juliets and Jean Flamme. Quickly, a tightrope was fixed between a birch forest and a castle, altering memory, vexing the matter. She comes to count the horses in the wild mustard. He tumbles down the iris mountain, other eye seeing they ought to alight. Quintillions of arrows under the eyelids must first be removed from the quiver. If it were woven, the spider is tipsy. How are you sleeping? Like a radish in the cooling nights, the dirt